Hi there, welcome to the Dylan Rounds case. Whilst it has been solved, there is one mystery which remains unknown of, and that's the true motive, the official statement by the murderer James Brenner. It's never been revealed. The family can guess and work out what it could possibly be, just like the audience, general public. Based off what I've heard over time and what's been said within the case, what Candice, Justin have witnessed themselves on behalf of talking to James Brenner in the early days, I'll give some possibilities today, to give you an idea of the original motive and why Brenner did what he did in a cold-blooded murder with really no emotion behind it either. If you are familiar with the recent video that I did, you could tie it in with his facial expressions or lack of emotion in total. Like, it was a normal thing for him to do, shooting Dylan multiple times in the head, moving his body about, blood on his hand, arm, jacket. Like, it didn't matter much to him, but comes across as a shock to some people. And I'm sure general public who haven't seen that video yet, the never seen before until just recent time, released public footage of the true incriminating evidence behind James Brenner. If you are interested in that, I've already done a video about it. I've done a full-on breakdown analysis of the photos, the screenshots, zooming in, clearing it up, giving context. If you'd like to see that, I will provide a link, top right corner of the screen, where the eye symbol is up there, maybe in the comment section as well. You'll also be able to find the full Dylan Rounds playlist to understand to a deeper, greater length of the ins and outs of the case, maybe additional motives, the psychology behind it, and so much more. The playlist up there, where the eye symbol is, and possibly down in the comment section. Credit to those that have commented previously on the last Dylan Rounds video that I did. Familiar faces, and still some around to this day. Always good to see. Is there a particular order to start? I mean, when it comes to the family, first-hand experience with James Brenner, unknown that he was the one responsible in the very early days. 28th of May 2022, Memorial Day weekend, when the murder occurred. The 29th was a day of when the odd Rounds family member was concerned because Dylan had not called back. Said Karen Round's grandmother decided to reach out supposedly to Don Hatley, that was a long-time family friend, and Don Hatley's best friend was James Brenner of all people. Karen wanted Don to search about property in the land of Luton, Utah, to check for Dylan and see if he's okay. Maybe he's got hurt, maybe he's trapped, fallen somewhere, bit of an injury, farming related. And that was tasked upon Don to go searching, and Don supposedly got Brenner to search as well. But there are counterpoints to suggest it never actually happened and they didn't really care. Wouldn't surprise me, especially Brenner, if he's the one responsible, which he was. Why would you go searching? What's the point? But in other occasions, you might search just so it doesn't look as suspicious, show that you are willing and that you actually care, so you can go under the radar. As for Don Hatley, that's still a little bit of a mystery, in fairness. But once that was done, no yielded success. So when it came to Monday, the Rounds family agreed upon that action needed to be taken, the parents to head on down to Dylan's farm to figure out what the hell's going on. And in the process of driving on down, Candice Cooley received a call from Don Hatley saying, with a thumbs up, you can now report Dylan as a missing person to police. Candice Cooley did say that was a red flag. Why would Don give Candice Cooley the heads up to do it? Candice, the mother, should be able to do it whenever she wants, not by the orders of a friend, of a stranger to some. It's a bit weird. Nevertheless, missing person report filed and whatnot. But on the Monday onwards, with Monday coming on down and talking to James Brenner, this is where the communication started coming about. That Justin Rounds, the father, said that, well, Brenner appeared quite cool and calm, didn't show much emotion, didn't show really any fear or too much worry. One of the first lies told by Brenner is when he mentioned about, oh, I moved Dylan's boots, put him around the dirt pile because I've not seen him for 6 months. Didn't think he would be coming back, so I thought I'll just take him away and move him on. As for the boots of Dylan. And obviously, Brenner did come across Dylan on the 28th of May 2022. So for Brenner to say, I've not seen him for 6 months, that's a big fat lie. And it proved in his polygraph test as well, as he failed completely on it. But, I guess in the eyes of Dylan's parents, who aren't in the presence of Dylan all the time, and Dylan doesn't live with his parents, and it's kind of like on and off visiting, they're not going to know every whereabout where Dylan is or what he's getting up to. So he could have been away from Brenner for 6 months, but truly that wasn't the case there. So besides Brenner lying for his teeth, but also appearing calm, Justin did receive some feedback from Brenner early on too about a gate being broken in regard to when Dylan was reversing into the grain shed with the grain truck. There is a horse gate within the grain shed, but it's on its side. One's damaged, stood up, the other one is still on a hinge or so. Dylan could well have crashed into it if it had been closed at the time of when Brenner wasn't anticipating Dylan to come on down. That's why Dylan made a call to Brenner to alert him to say, I'm coming on down, so it didn't disturb him, and it would have given time Brenner for make any changes to unlock the gate and whatnot. But Brenner wasn't willing to answer the phone, or just completely ignored it, or may have been asleep. So it's unfortunate that. Maybe if Brenner actually listened to Dylan's call, could have been a slightly different outcome. And does it warrant Brenner taking it out on Dylan just for breaking a horse gate now? But because of Brenner, the way he is and how he's acted in the past, that is just yet another factor and motive behind why he did what he did to Dylan. Now, Brenner supposedly has never killed anyone before, but definitely has hurt people, and the usage of a firearm or so. You can see how wrong place, wrong time, this time out for Dylan, unfortunately, it ended much worse. As for Brenner in the past, or at the time at least, and in the past, had a horse called Briscoe, and there was some story mentioned by Dylan's family, I believe, on behalf of what they heard with Brenner, about how in the past, the gate was left open by a worker or farm handler. It led to the horse escaping the land, grain shed property, and it was free, running about all over, and Brenner had to fetch his horse back, which wasn't that easy, and he was enraged. He was really angry. So if you got someone like Dylan reversing into the grain shed, damages the gate, if the horse is inside or not, it could have disturbed it, could have worried the horse. Brenner gets protective of his horse, or just annoyed that once again, more disruption, recklessness, and a bit of damage. Justin Rounds did say that in 2021 of winter time or so at his own shop, but when Brenner and Don was there when repairing a vehicle or so, and Dylan was elsewhere in a different room, through the CCTV camera and audio, Justin Rounds heard about Brenner speaking about Dylan in a negative way, a great form of jealousy, long-standing jealousy, a bad taste in the mouth, kind of a bit of hatred towards Dylan and how he handles farming equipment, how reckless he is, as it's been quoted in the past. So Brenner already has a bad taste in his mouth in regard to Dylan. The next time Dylan makes a simple mistake, uses equipment somewhat wrong, it's going to trigger Brenner even more. And when it's on his own property, well, not his property, he didn't own it, he was supposedly squatting, but when it's to do with some of his property, such as his horse, and maybe the horse gate, and there's any damage to any of that, it's going to trigger Brenner. And on top of it, if he had been drinking, which I'm not too sure about, if he's been asleep or half asleep, that abrupt noise, a bang sound, wakes you up. Whoa, what's going on? Defense mode activated, self-defense mechanism. And the only way Brenner knows how is to get aggressive, defensive, and pull out a firearm, regardless of who it is. So Brenner steps out the trail of his, sees Dylan in the process of parking or already successful, and then walking up to Dylan and then firing the shots. As for any dialogue, talk, who knows, because Brenner hasn't really mentioned about that. Dylan himself can't speak because unfortunately he's no longer here. So that's like one of the main motives in regard to his protectiveness of his horse, some of his property or items, if they get damaged or not, and already a distaste and jealousy, hatred for Dylan Rounds. And granted, if it's been like that for some time, if in the past, such as when Candice Cully said at her place of living in the back yard or so that Dylan and Brenner were kind of like living together in a trailer or in separate trailers close together when they were doing custom farm work elsewhere in Idaho, I believe. That at that time, that chance with being close together for a certain length of time for months, Brenner could have taken his opportunity there on Dylan. But then again, maybe it just wasn't that time, that moment, and the people around and witnesses, it just wouldn't have worked out. And that long-standing hatred hadn't built enough then until later. But the true trigger point would be, such as damage to the horse gate, would be just an abrupt in the moment, the noise, the sound, if Brenner was already in a bad mood, if he had been drinking, a bit of a hangover, frustrations, impulses, things like that, psychology behind it. What we need to also acknowledge is another motive is just the fact that he is constantly reoffended. When he's simply spoken to in a way he doesn't like, he gets frustrated and he threatens to kill people. Perfect example was witnessed by Justin Rounds, the father, in the past. Before 2021 or so, it's when Dylan had bought pigs alongside with Brenner, and where they were going to store them, place them, it was going to be opposite Justin's family or parents' house property. They didn't run it through Justin, nor did Dylan run it through Justin. So when finding out about it, Justin wasn't too happy and confronted Dylan, confronted Brenner, or in that chat, speaking it out. And what ended up happening was, because Justin wasn't too pleased and kind of told Brenner off in a certain way, Brenner didn't like it. So as soon as Justin left, Dylan, who was still in the presence of Brenner, overheard him mutter, "Oh, I'm going to kill that guy, I'm going to shoot him." Says a lot, doesn't it? And then Dylan passed that message on to Justin, and then Larry Rounds, the grandfather of Dylan, ended up contacting Brenner to get Justin and them to get together and kind of like talk things out. And whilst it may have been resolved to some extent, the fact that your son is in the presence of someone that is willing to kill your father, and it wasn't a big red flag enough to say, right, we need to pull you out of that place, we need to move you on, distance yourself, do something at least, right? Whilst the father may have not been killed by Brenner, the threat was there. And even if it wasn't taken serious enough by some, including Dylan, and which is understandable because the age he was at the time, even younger and more naive, but in the end, it was actually Dylan that was on the receiving end of that indirect threat and actually led to death. But in, I think it might be in the 1980s or 70s, there was a Maryland incident in which Brenner intentionally shot a worker due to a work dispute in the leg area. It wasn't fatal, it wasn't enough to kill the person, but it was done as like malicious wounding done with intent. However, with his attorney and lawyer, they were able to reduce the charges down to just like a wounding, and that was it. But because Brenner way back then was willing and wanting to hurt someone with the use of a firearm, although it was just in the leg, it's the fact that Brenner had a firearm pointing at that person. You fast forward on years later, another work dispute with Dylan Rounds wanting to park grain truck in shed, Brenner not too happy with it. What does Brenner do? The first thing and the only thing that he knows is pull a gun out and shoot the individual. See, when you look at it like that, there might be additional reasons as well. But if he's constantly reoffending and he doesn't like how he's spoken to at times, throws the toys out the pram, gets cold as well, retaliates with aggression, violence, physical with fist or with objects, weapons in a cowardly way, out of nowhere where the other person doesn't even have time to react, and it's happened on different occasions as well, a recipe for disaster. Whilst we may not have the official confirmation or from the horse's mouth, Brenner himself, no pun intended, that when you add it all up together with common sense, it seems pretty clear why Brenner did what he did to Dylan. It wasn't warranted, should never have happened, but in a way, when you reflect back now, kind of was expected. That even if things were done a little bit differently on the day, if Dylan hadn't parked the grain truck in the shed, if Brenner picked up the phone and there was a bit more of a welcoming, that the horse gate wasn't closed, it was actually open, there'd be less triggering factors for Brenner, safer for Dylan, but it doesn't guarantee the future that it would be any better or safer. So it would just have delayed the inevitable, in my opinion. You can let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section with my analysis of points of views for motos. If you've got different ones, let me know down below and I'll make sure to read them. And once again, if you are interested in previous coverage on this case extensively, the playlist will be top right corner screen. My name's Warlike Ref. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thumbs up, and if you share the video, that'd be much appreciated. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.